All right, thank you and welcome to City Hall. A lot of people standing. You are more than welcome in the adjoining room, Committee Room 2. Same kind of configuration. We are being live streamed. The presentation will be on the same screens, and it will allow you to still interact and be involved in the meeting. So encourage those, if you do want to sit down, please move to Committee Room 2, which is just across the hall. So, I don't think anyone's going to do it. Okay, we will get started then. We are scheduled for 2 hours this evening. My name is Carlton Grant, and I'm the Director of Policy and Strategic Support with the City's Municipal Licensing and Standards Division, joined by a number of my colleagues in City Planning, the City Manager's Office, Toronto Building, Facilities, and others. So thank you for all those who've helped us put this together. I want to welcome you to City Hall. I want to welcome you to this discussion, and I also want to welcome those joining us on our live streams. This is being live streamed on our Get Involved TO YouTube channel, and it's also on Periscope. Oh, slide 2. Okay. Great. So, why are we here? The City of Toronto is seeking public input on regulations for short-term rentals in the City of Toronto. This evening is all about listening to you. It's about getting your feedback to help inform us on potential regulations for short-term rentals that we need to present to our Executive Committee in this same room on June 19th, 2017. As I mentioned, this is being live streamed, so it's also being recorded for a documentary. There are other members of the media who may be filming. Just caution you that what you say is going to be recorded and be kept in perpetuity. So great time to ask everyone to be really responsible, respectful of each other, and mindful of your choice of words. And for those joining us on Periscope, they can find us at Get Involved TO, and the hashtags that we will be using to measure the discussion is short-term rentals and City of TO. So I will go through a staff presentation, about 11 slides, provide you with some context of what we've been asked to do, why we're here, and what we're hoping to gain from today's session. These are very challenging. So what we have found in our recent experience is that the best way for us to get information, for have everyone heard, is to have facilitated group discussions. So while we've all gathered in this room right now, the later part of the evening, the last hour and a half, we will be going into smaller, more manageable groups in this room and the other room, led by a number of my colleagues and facilitators, so that we can hear everyone's voice, not just one person coming up to the mic at each time. We don't get the input that we need. It's valuable. We want everyone to get a chance to speak, and we find we've had the most success doing it this way. Logistically, not the best. Logistically tough to get everyone to move around and to get into different groups. But it does work. We did this on March 28th in North York, and to great success. We had over 120 people, a little more tonight, but I think we have a little more room as well. It's somewhat conducive, and I just ask for everyone's patience as we get into those smaller groups. And then please be candid with us. Please give us your experiences. Please be honest and let us know. That's the only way you're going to help us inform the work that we need to do over the next few months. So the process background is really why we're here. And in January of 2016, Council directed us to come back and research and develop potential regulations for short-term rentals. Very key word there is potential regulations. So they're not saying come back with rules, but they're saying come back with potentially what rules could look like, some options for consideration. This is really us doing our work, providing our best professional opinion to the members of the executive committee and to council for them to deliberate, for them to ask questions, for them to engage in the discussion, and then for them ultimately to make the decisions. At this January 2016 meeting, we were asked for 21 specific asks or directions on a variety of areas, from zoning to licensing to the impact on the affordability and availability of housing, human trafficking, opportunities that this could create for sexual assault, a number of diverse asks that we put into a framework report on how we were going to respond to this very diverse, challenging, complex issue. And that was approved by committee in October, and it sent us out to do this work, to do this consultation, to hear from stakeholders. And from November of 2016 until May, we are doing a very thorough piece of research and public consultation. And lastly, we will come to the June 19th Executive Committee with potential regulations. And what's important to note here is, for those following this issue very closely, the report will become public on July 12th, 7 days prior to the meeting. It will be online. It'll allow you a chance to read it, to digest it, to agree, to disagree, and then to, if you'd like, to provide a written submission, or if you'd like to sign up to depute in front of this committee, where you would sit at that table and you would get 5 minutes to speak on the report and your experiences in this space. And you would have 10 councillors and the mayor who would be listening to you and then asking questions, and your deputations and your written submissions inform the discussion. They are very important to what we're doing, and the more information and education that they have, the better they will be to make decisions. So the consultation plan has been very diverse, very broad. This is our second public meeting. We've also had 5 different stakeholder consultations with stakeholder groups that we've managed into manageable groups. Neighborhood housing and community groups, corporate housing, short-term rental platforms, hotel, motel, the traditional industry, and then finally the condominium, a variety of condominium corporations and condominium associations, and people who live in condominiums. We launched an online survey the City of Toronto did on March 28th, which seeks further input on this matter. I encourage you to go to that. I encourage you to share it with your colleagues, and I encourage you to be honest and forthcoming with that. We also worked with third-party research company Ipsos Reid on a survey, a representative survey over 1,000 people in the City of Toronto. And we also had 2 focus groups that they hosted, one with hosts and one with users, to really try to understand how it was being used in our city. So, the working definition, and to provide context to everyone, what we're talking about today. What is a short-term rental? And for the purposes of tonight's discussion, it's those rentals that are less than 30 days, they're run by owners, property managers, or tenants, and they're occurring in homes, second suites, condominiums, and apartment buildings. There's a number of platforms that provide access to short-term rentals, the payment and the booking, and there's a variety of platforms shown here: Airbnb, Flipkey, VRBO, HomeAway, and Sonder. There are others, and there are others to come. What we come forward with needs to be regulation that adapts to these emerging businesses and balances the needs of the community moving forward. Currently in the City of Toronto, short-term rentals potentially are governed under the zoning bylaw. It permits some residents to rent rooms in their homes to tourists in some areas in Toronto. The city's zoning bylaw has a definition called tourist homes, which permits the rental of housing or units or parts thereof in tourist homes. I also want to clarify that the City of Toronto does not permit or license short-term rentals at this time, nor do we permit or license hotels, motels, or bed and breakfasts. It's also important to know that there is no special tax on short-term rentals at this time, nor is there one on traditional bed and breakfast, hotels, or motels. And just to clarify, there is a voluntary hotel tax that a number of the downtown hotels opt into, and the funds from that go towards destination marketing and Tourism Toronto in bringing tourists to our city. So there isn't a lot of data out there. A number of units or homes are on a number of different platforms. And so what we have done is we have worked with Airbnb, and they have been forthcoming with data to give us a sense of what's happening in our city. And according to their statistics, there are over 16,000 listings that were rented on Airbnb in 2016. 97% of these were rented for a stay that lasted less than 30 days. 24% of these are happening in homes, and 69% are happening in condominiums and apartment buildings. This map, don't get too involved in it. It's roughly showing where it's happening, a lot in the downtown core, along on the Young Spine up in towards North York. The darker the red, the greater the activity of listings. So, of the 21 items that I spoke of in the directives that we've been given by our executive committee, we've broken that down into 4 focus areas. Neighborhoods, what's happening in our communities, housing availability and affordability, rental housing stock, housing stock. We're also looking at economic development and tourism. And finally, taxation, commercial, residential, and then the hotel tax or an accommodation tax is something the province is exploring, and the city is going to ask us to explore as well. We have been asked. So, to keep up to date with what's happening over the next 2 months, I encourage you to visit our website, toronto.ca/MLS Have Your Say. We'll have the updates there. We'll have details on further consultations, or the survey is there. The link to our live stream is there. That is where you will find the latest and greatest information, and eventually the report will be found there as well so that you can access it and read that. So, before I turn it over to Nagin, I just want to tell you a little bit of how these group discussions are going to work and what we're looking to get from them. We want to hear about your experiences, not just concerns. We want to hear ideas, opportunities. Did you think of this? And what's happening in your communities. Staff will ask a few discussion questions and record your feedback. Again, be candid, be honest, but be respectful of the other people in your group. One person speaking at a time. Not everyone's going to agree on different opinions, but it's important that we let everyone's voice be heard, and we will document that. And what we will do as a section in our report will be a big section on what we heard from the various stakeholder groups, and we'll layer this upon and come up with common denominators. We heard mostly a lot of this, or some of this was anecdotal, and we'll do that analysis. You can also write down your ideas. There are comment forms in the room, and your facilitators would have them as well. And then again, I encourage you to fill out our online survey. All right, so I spoke about a few of these, but I'm going to remind you, because it's really important for the smoothness of this exercise. Again, speak one at a time, allow time and space for others to speak, be respectful, be a patient listener, and really stay on topic. We need ideas, we need your experiences. So I encourage you to focus on those areas, focus on the questions at hand, and I encourage you to have a great discussion. So, is there one more? Okay, so just go back. We talked about the live stream, and we talked about concurrently what's happening. So these group discussions are going to happen, and then there's going to be the Periscope, where there's going to be online dialogue, and my colleagues will be answering questions. So we'll have 2 concurrent discussions happening at once, plus the live stream for those who weren't able to join us tonight. The other benefit of the live stream is that for those who weren't able to attend because they were not in the city, or they were working, or they had other commitments, this will be available on our website, and you can review it, and you can share it with others, and it's a great technique. We've used this before in other consultations with the live stream, And it is a very useful tool to go back and, if you weren't able to attend, to see what the discussion was all about. So I encourage everyone to have a great evening. I appreciate everyone's time to come to evening meetings. It's not easy. I know you all have day jobs. You've taken time out of your life to provide input to the City of Toronto. Get Involved TO is what this is all about, and thank you for getting involved in our city on this important issue. Nagin?
Does this mic work? Okay. Hi, everyone. So we're going to break out into group discussions. There are quite a few people in the room, so we have both this room and committee room 2 booked for our use. So I would ask that maybe from here on, everyone go into committee room 2, and there are a number of facilitators who will follow you in there, and probably group you out into 15 to 20 people per group. Try to mix yourselves up a little bit so you're not just with your friends. So the facilitators and note takers will guide you through 2 questions. If you want, can you? The first one is, what are your experiences with short-term rentals? So you'll have 30 minutes to answer that question, and then we'll go around and let you know when to move on to question 2, which is the city is considering developing new rules for short-term rentals in Toronto. What issues should the city consider? So with that, also, if you have any accessibility needs and you haven't spoken to myself or other staff, please find one of us and let us know, or get someone to find one of us and let us know so we can accommodate you. And I think that's it. So facilitators, do you want to maybe wave? Get up, and those of you who were assigned committee room 2, make your way there. And again, everyone from this line onward, move on to the next room. Thank you.
Check 1 2. Check check check. Check check 1 2.
Someone making a similar announcement in the other room?
They can hear us. Hi, everyone. Hello.
So if everyone could wrap up, please.
I'd like to invite one of facilitators from each team to come back into committee room 1, but I encourage everyone else to remain in their seats. We're just going to do a little wrap up. So if I can get this one of the facilitators from each team or each group to come back here.
Who do you want to get now? Me or where the...
I don't know about the other room, but it is working on the live stream, and then this is supposedly working.
All right, if everyone can take their seats, we're just going to wrap up with some final thoughts and what we heard.
Hello. I don't think this works.
Hello, hello, testing, testing. Hello. This one's louder right now.
Can I ask everyone to either take a seat and maybe quiet
Check.
down a little bit so we can do a quick wrap up?
I know. Hello, hello. It's not loud enough. It's really loud in here. Very loud. Hello, hello. Hello? Hello? Do you want me to I can do my yell, but yeah.
Can you do it? Yeah.
Freestyle. Thank you, Amy.
Thanks, everyone. So we have, hopefully we have one facilitator from each group who's here. Do we? Yeah? Okay. You're one group. Can I get one facilitator from each group to gather around here, because you'll be using one of these mics, preferably this one, to give a little bit of feedback or highlight some of the key points, some of the most interesting points that you've heard, or just, if something kind of stood out for you for each question. I'll ask maybe the first 5 to provide maybe 1 or 2 points from question 1, and then the last 6 to provide 1 or 2 points from question 2. So is it Maha or Lorraine, are you? Okay. So also introduce yourself, because it's, just say your name.
Hi, my name is Lorraine Chua. I'm with the City of Toronto Municipal Licensing and Standards. So I facilitated one of the group discussions today. So for the first question, I think an interesting point we heard was from one individual. So she she previously lived in cooperative or subsidized housing, and it was specific to artists. And she was finding that a lot of the units were being rented out as short-term rentals. And she brought up an interesting point. First of all, that type of activity is taking away the housing stock for these artists, which is what it was intended for. And then also the question of whether this type of activity should even be allowed, the city should consider, given the fact that it's subsidized housing, and if that person should be able to also then get an income from short-term rentals in that type of an arrangement.
We're actually going to provide a point from question 2 as well, even though you told us not to. So I am Maha. I'm also with Municipal Licensing and Standards, and Lori and I worked in the same group. And for question 2, we heard a lot of concern about we talked about the question, should you be able to rent out your own home or a unit in your own home, so home sharing versus buying a separate property and using it as a commercial tax income. So a lot of people felt that if it's sharing within your own home, it's not really impacting the tourism economy, and it's really just helping individuals come into Toronto, experience it in a very authentic way, see different neighborhoods, try more mom and pop shops, and really just giving them that experience of Toronto in a different way that's much more affordable. Versus when you're buying a house for an investment property and then not being taxed within that way, that it's not fair, and it's taking homes away from people that are actually looking for somewhere to live long term versus everybody or not everybody, but people that are buying properties for personal gain for investment and really contributing to the housing crisis. So that is our 2 points. Thank you.
Thanks, Maha. Did you want to go?
Hi, I'm Deanna, and I'm with the City Planning Division. We had a good discussion. I just kind of raised some of the general issues. There was, I'd say, mixed consensus, but certainly a number of people felt that if houses were owner-occupied or buildings were owner-occupied, that was an acceptable form of short-term accommodation. There was consensus that any host and any user really needs to be a good neighbor and kind of work with their neighbors, make sure that they're following existing city regulations and those sorts of pieces. And that there was general comfort, I think, with some sort of licensing approach, provided that it was clear, easy to understand, and hosts were able to easily comply with it. There was also a lot of discussion around housing availability and affordability, and we had folks who were raising that there was a need for both affordable short-term accommodation as well as affordable long-term accommodation, so both those issues were raised.
Hi, my name is Rashad Meehan. I'm also with City Planning. Thanks also to the members of my group who were here. We had a productive discussion. So just to speak to the first question, we had an interesting story from an individual who's trying to set up a youth hostel in the city, and it speaks a little bit to Deanna's point. She was just describing her experience trying to wrap her head around the various kind of dimensions of regulation that already exist, or trying to understand kind of what she could and couldn't do with a property that she had purchased. So I think the takeaway from that was a general consensus around there needing to be clarity and flexibility in any potential policy that comes into place, so that folks who are looking to do different types of things with their property would still be able to do that.
Hi, my name is Kayla Barda, and I work with the City Manager's Office. So our group had a lot of good points, but just to say something a little bit different from what's already been said here, we've talked a lot about the difference between home sharing and someone who's actually renting out their property as a business. And so in that context, one of the things that was discussed in our group was the difference between perhaps multiple units in a condo building being rented out on a short-term basis versus someone who is just sharing their home, and that might not impact a lot of other people in their neighborhood or their neighbors. And so to think about how a whole bunch of short-term rentals in one building might impact the residents of that condo building, might impact the amenities of that condo building, and any other condo rules that those short-term renters might not be aware of or might not be following, versus someone who is just renting out some extra unused space in their home.
My name is Dylan. I'm with the Municipal Licensing and Standards Division. I'll address question 2. So 2 issues that came up for us. One of them was taxes. A good suggestion that came up, or one that was often discussed, was the taxes that we receive, if we receive from hotels or Airbnb, should they be earmarked for affordable housing or certain initiatives such as those? There's also the issue of fairness of taxation is important, and our group raised the point of transparency. So if we're going to raise taxes and earmark them for something, citizens need to be able to see where that's coming from. The other issue that the city needs to consider is the amount of data we have and our ability to collect data. They said we have some data for last year, but they think the city needs to be better at projecting what we need going forward. So next year, the year forward, how is this industry going to grow? Also, they said we need data on the impact of affordable housing because right now a lot of it's left to speculation and the idea that maybe it's contributing to housing availability, housing shortage, maybe it's not, and they think that the city needs to focus on data rather than a reliance on anecdotal evidence.
My mic's not on. My mic's on. My name is Jen. I'm from the Environment and Energy Division. And what I'm thinking a lot about from the group that I had the honor to facilitate was and is looking holistically at affordability. So affordability for residents in Toronto. Hosts are also residents in Toronto, and we'll look at a variety of different ways to maintain rental properties as well as their own homes to survive in the city, but also our residents that are lower income or have other barriers to access are facing a lot of issues around affordability as well. So I'm thinking a lot about that right now.
And our group had a great diversity of experiences and personal stories that were very informative. They ranged from those who were helping families, they were making ends meet, they were contributing to the community, versus experiences that were truly devastating, very scary, very risky, and major safety concerns, which remind us that there are some serious risks and there is room to improve.
My name is Natasha Zapula. I'm with Toronto Building. Our group was a very diverse group, and it was very productive. We had condo association, Airbnb hosts, as well as residents, and of homeowners that were forced out of their home due to negative experiences, and renters in the city that are having trouble finding affordable rent. So it was a very diverse group, very productive conversation, and the main issues that came out of that was that they did all agree that there should be some sort of regulation, a fair regulation, that we should consider, the City of Toronto has to decide what is an occasional user, what is a short-term renter, and how we're going to enforce that. So the major issues were, whatever regulations come up, enforcement is key. Zoning bylaws are difficult to enforce from experiences in the group and possibly not the best route. What did come up was that the impact on condominiums and the investment buyer buying out a number of houses or units in a condo and then renting them out, or that tenant subletting and renting out as well, and the strain it caused on utilities. There were some positive experiences as well. Property managers and office use mainly, so workers and employees of a business would rent out how many units in a condo for more than 30 days. Everyone agreed was okay. But short-term rental in and out was a negative experience for the condominium in our group. Just one more thing that they did say, number of occupants is also key when considering potential regulations, and fire code always to be enforced, and how we're going to enforce it. Thank you.
Thank you. My name is Christina with City Planning. Similarly, our group also talked about enforcement. There seemed to be agreement that some regulation was required, and I think because there's a fear of the unknown about how this trend is going to change over time. So are we going to see even more homes being used for short-term rentals? Are we going to see purpose-built facilities? Are we going to have people within our building, making noise or doing drugs? There's just a lot of concern about the future, and regulation will somehow give everyone, I think, confidence in that they'll know what the future will hold. I think there's agreement that the regulation should be open for modification if the trends do change, so that we are seeing perhaps purpose-built facilities, then maybe you do have a regulation that addresses that. When it comes to enforcement, there seems to be, I think we got a shared responsibility, both it's the responsibility of the city, but then also the responsibility of the platforms who are offering the service, and that perhaps the city needs to be responsible in terms of enforcing fines and dictating what the fines may be, but the platform should also be responsible for encouraging community and neighborliness, and also enforcing whatever rules it is or regulations it is that the city develops.
Hi, I'm Kirsten from City Planning. A lot of the points have been covered. We had a great conversation, really wide range of experiences and people with multiple hats. I think what I can add is that there was a suggestion that there's a model in New Orleans that was of interest, and a lot of people sort of responded to this participant suggestion around categorizing and sort of clarifying where the short-term rentals fall. So the suggestion was that there is an accessory type category that would capture people that share their homes, maybe a second bedroom, very casual, infrequent sort of practice. Then there's the temporary category where people may summer away and rent out their home during that period. And then there's the more commercial, which we've heard about, where there's investment properties in multiple units. And sort of we had a discussion about different types of regulations and rules. I think there was a general consensus that some kind of clarity around standards and expectations is needed, but that perhaps that's on a spectrum based on sort of the category in which your short-term rental might fall.
And I'm Caroline from City Planning. So just to go over a few things that haven't been said yet. There seemed to be a lot of talk about whether it's owner-occupied or, and if we're sharing a home or if it's purpose rent, what we were talking about before. So there seemed to be some consensus about maybe different rules for if you're traditionally home sharing versus if it was an investment for that purpose, and if that could be, that playing field could be leveled out a little bit, whether it be through taxing or licensing or registration or some kind of system like that. We also talked about consideration of the number of days and or the number of days per year that a unit is rented out short term, and also the number of nights. So maybe there could be some rules about those specific things. And I think other things have already been said.
Hello, everyone. My name is Suzanne, and I work with Toronto Children's Services at the city. We had quite a diverse conversation, and I would say for the most part, there was quite a lot of diversity, both in terms of people's experiences and also in terms of their opinions on how to move forward. Just to emphasize the one thing that stood out as a point of almost full agreement around the table, which has already been said, which is really around looking at the differentiating between the different types of short-term rentals. So looking at a difference between people that are renting out their own homes in which they currently live and will be living during that time versus those that rent out empty dwellings. With that, in terms of the experiences, a lot has already been shared, so I won't repeat. But on the positive end, there was discussions around the income that it brings for those individuals. So the discussion around affordability and how renting out aspects of their own home really helps with that affordability in a housing market that's becoming increasingly unaffordable. And also on the same trend, helping with economic development opportunities. So one person spoke about the opportunity where renting out part of their own home was bringing in additional income and allowing them to explore new entrepreneurship opportunities. So it was creating those opportunities for them. On the negative side, two things. One was around, again, the availability of housing and the potential link between short-term rentals reducing the number of rental opportunities, which was potentially having an impact on the cost. Based on supply and demand. And the other one that was raised was the around human trafficking. So it was raised that short-term rentals and the lack of regulations currently are creating opportunities for those who are engaged in very harmful activities to have that opportunity to conduct those activities. So things that apparently used to take part in hotels, now there's an opportunity for people to use this type of platform to take part in those activities. Just really quickly on next steps moving forward. other things that haven't already been said, I think, is just around whatever the direction is around taxation, using a lens of leveling, so making sure that it's fair, thinking about what hotels and other traditional tourist establishments are required to do, and looking at making sure that there's a leveling of that field, so to speak. And the other one, just making sure that the city has that ability to monitor the situation. So regardless on what they do with regulations, having a link where they can track what's happening over time.
Great, thank you. Thanks, everyone. I wanted to ask, no, never mind. I'm going to pass it over to Carlton to wrap up.
Okay, so I'm going to start with a number of thank yous. Want to thank you to the staff team. We have over 20 staff here from multiple divisions helping out and facilitating, and we all realize the importance of this issue, and thanks everyone for your participation. I also want to thank all of you who came and again spent the evening with us and shared your input. It's very valuable. I heard a lot of great things, a great discussion. I also want to thank the people who have joined us online. Again, a new experience for us, and we hope to keep doing this on our YouTube channel and on Periscope. I also want to make a correction. I misspoke in one of my earlier slides. The report is going to the June 19th Executive Committee meeting, and the report will become available to all of you on June 12th. Apparently I said July. So I apologize for that, but that's a really important clarification, June 12th. The final remarks that I'd like to make, again, is to thank everyone for getting involved in our city, for sharing your views, your thoughts, your ideas. It is instrumental to our process. It's instrumental to us providing the report that we have to, and that neutral professional advice to the members who normally sit around this table. I would also like to put one last plug in for our website, and that's toronto.ca/MLS Have Your Say. That is where you will find updates. That's where you will find the survey. And if you want to revisit this meeting and see how you look on YouTube, I strongly encourage that. And again, just thank you everyone for your patience. Everyone was well behaved. Everyone got their points across. Everyone got a chance to speak. And have a great Wednesday evening, and thanks very much.